Well, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Let the Truth Be Told. My name is Seon Williams, and I am so proud to be in front of the camera once again, taping another program of Let the Truth Be Told. You see me in my fine Apple hat today, representing Black History Month, and I thought that'd be a good way to segue out of Black History Month to show a representation of with the Apple hat. So I thank the Lord for being there. I thank the Lord for UPTV, Jason, and everybody, and the whole staff over here at the Urbana City Council for allowing us an opportunity to be in front of the camera once again. And I thank the Lord for everybody out there that said, Sean, I watch your program every Sunday night. I really appreciate it. I am so happy to have a close friend of mine, Miss Patricia Avery, in the studio with us this afternoon taping this program. And me and Patricia, I mean, we met years ago, and she's been diligent working for this community for many years. And so, and I was able to get introduced to her years ago, and we've worked closely together since then. Yes. And I am going to let her introduce herself in her own way. She's current president of the NAACP. She used to be the previous council chair for the Champaign County Board. Champaign County Board.
Yes.
Had to get that out. Champaign County Board. So, Miss Patricia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Kind of give the audience a little snippet of your history of what you've been doing in Champaign.
Well, first, I have to say thank you, Sean.
Yes.
You and I have been talking about getting together, doing this show together, and it is an honor to sit here with you today, especially during Black History Month. But I want to say it's good to be at the King's table. Honestly, it has
tip my
been.
Hat for that one.
Well, I've been invited to the Queen's table, but I said I got to go to the King's table first.
Okay.
And so I really appreciate you inviting me here today.
Yes.
Like you said, you and I have been working in the community for a long time now. And I really do appreciate our relationship and how it's grown over the years, but what's always connected through community and what's happening in the community. And I really noticed how you cared so much about our community. You and I both are from here. So we have a deep connection to this community. And so I really do appreciate that your longevity in terms of you staying here, the long fight. It continues, the struggle continues, and you're still here. So what I've been doing is hanging out with you, trying to make sense of some of the things that we see, repeated things that continue to happen in our community. As the NAACP president, we get a lot of things that doesn't come to the radar of the public, but there's just a lot going on. We are very interested and concerned, as from the NAACP's standpoint. The national would like to see us kind of push the ideal of these body cams for police officers.
Okay.
And I know that that's something that actually is taking place in Champaign County. I know our Champaign County sheriff has body cams, and I think Champaign and Urbana both are looking at maybe purchasing body cams, and that is something at the NAACP national level that we are concerned about. And this is, of course, on the heels of the Eric Gardner and Michael Brown cases that we all are well too familiar with.
Right.
And so we certainly are working to encourage our local law enforcement to purchase those body cams.
And how do you feel as though seeing video, being able to see the footage of video, how important is that video and seeing that video when we've seen in previous years some of that video seeming to appear to show something and just a cut and dry case, should I say, of some of these incidents, and officers still getting exonerated and things of that nature?
I know that's pretty hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
But we know those cameras are not panaceas, because we can have faulty equipment, but we need every tool for the protection of the citizen as well as for the protection of the officer.
Yeah.
I think it helps to put the the gray areas, so to speak, to rest. It creates a better story of what actually happened on the street. So I think that the more information we have, it can only serve us better. So like I said, for the citizen and for the police.
Yeah.
But we know it's not a panacea.
Yeah. You know, one word that comes to mind when you were saying this, it just brings more light for the citizen and the officers.
Yes.
And one word that I learned getting involved with community work was I always hear transparency.
That is the key.
And that was the word that just popped in my mind. Is I would always hear at different meetings, we want to be transparent.
That's right.
And I think that's just an honest gesture from both sides.
That's
to
right.
be able to provide enough information and evidence to be able to make the community comfortable enough that the people that are in charge are making the right decisions when they're making the right decisions, whatever verdicts that they come out with.
That's right. Transparency cannot be understated. You know, when we know more about what happened in any particular situation, it only puts we look at some of the recent cases where there were no video. It would have been so much better for the community to grapple with the idea that, was Michael Brown running away or running to the officer? There was no video to explain or that we could see that actually happened that day. How great would it have been? But then we had the Eric Gardner case, where there was a video, where he was caught on video asking the officer, telling the officer, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And so I think it's it's not a panacea, but I think it does help to explain some of the gray areas that people might have in their minds about what happens. People come to conclusions of what might have taken place. This might help the story be more fully developed.
Yeah. And one of the things that me and Patricia did, and as you guys know, I also own a funeral home here locally in the community, and I work diligently with families, really closely with families during this process of them trying to memorialize their loved ones.
Oh, yes.
And so it's a tough job.
It's tough.
It's a tough job, and
I commend you on that.
I get so involved with it. It's an emotional job.
Yes, I imagine.
Me not being healed from some of the things, some of the loved ones
Right.
I've lost, and in some tragic ways that I've lost them,
Yes.
and so being able to sit down and really understand what families are going through. And so during the recent cases, because we've had so much violence going on through our local community, along with it being nationally, black on black violence,
Yes.
murders and things that have been happening throughout the community. And this past summer we had, and I spoke about on the previous program, 6 to 7 murders
Yes.
that have happened. I think only one incident where some of St. Louis were found and being brought to justice on this week coming. They start trial. I know within the campus incidents, they found those guys that maybe committed those murders, and they caught them rarely fast, which really quick.
Yeah.
And I think that sparked an alarm to people in the African American community, these families and things of that
Right.
nature that I've served, and even some of the families that I didn't serve in the funeral business that were served by other funeral homes. But just talking and having a conversation with these families, and I remember just doing it because me with the military mind, I always like to do a recount of what happened at the funeral and kind of what could we do to be better, and how's the family doing? So kind of updates with my family and let them know it just wasn't a business deal, and
Yes.
and that we're giving a bedside manner to our families, and kind of sitting down with one of my friends. He got killed here right before Christmas, and speaking with his mom, and she kind of said, "Well, Sean, have you heard anything? And I know me and you attended a meeting. Actually, you were in Springfield that particular day, but I made it back in time enough to make a community coalition meeting at the police department, and the chief guy gave updates. Actually, all chiefs were there, and they gave updates on the violence and where were they at on trying to solve these murders that have happened in the community. And I think that kind of sparked something. And then after talking to my family, and she was saying, Sean, have you heard anything? And I kind of gave it an update of what was said in the meeting.
Okay.
And then she said, well, I said, well, haven't you heard anything? She said, no one's really called me since my son was murdered. And so after talking to her, I kind of talked to a couple more of my families, and they said they haven't heard anything back. So it kind of started a dialogue with me calling you and saying, hey, look, I think this is something that we need to look into, because these families, they are I would want to say they need somebody to be able to, and they deserve this, for somebody to be able to come back and give them an encounter of what's going on with the ongoing investigation.
That's right.
Play by play.
They deserve it.
They deserve this, play by play, and to give them a sense of comfort that someone's working on this for them. And with all bootstraps tied and looking for these assailants. Other than that, they're running around here rampant within our community to commit this again and bring another family to such a tragical end. So tell us a little about the meeting that we set up at your office with the families, and what did you kind of get out of that? What we did is, and let me give my update, and what we did is me and Patricia, we kind of put our heads together, and we met at her office and was able to get with all the families that have, and not just the immediate family members, but family and friends that were connected, because when this type of tragedy happens, it's a nuclear fallout throughout the family, throughout the friends, throughout the community.
It's extended.
And it's extended. And so we were able to bring them in the space at Patricia's office, along with the Chief of Police, Anthony Cobb. And I thank you, Chief Cobb, for allowing yourself to be exposed at that level.
He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, to such a rough crowd that's kind of extreme. They were kind of a hurt crowd.
Well, that's right.
I would say hurt.
That's
that are looking for answers. And I know it might not all be comfortable sometimes. Sometimes we got to get out of our comfort zones.
Well, pain is not comfortable.
Yeah.
Pain is not comfortable. And we had a meeting on February 11th. Okay. And like you said, it came after the Mondo case, where a number of that case was brought to, they captured the murderers of Mr. Mondo really quickly, within hours of it happening. And so you were getting calls, and I was getting calls about from some of the family members that were certainly not, they were happy to know that that case was brought to justice so quickly. I mean, the murderers were caught very quickly. So let's not, we don't want anyone to think that the grieving families were upset because they caught these guys quickly. But they did have questions about answers that they hadn't gotten about their loved ones that had been murdered. And so really what people just want is an opportunity to be heard. They need answers. These are very difficult times, John. And I think about that, losing a loved one, that has got to be the most profound thing that anyone has ever had to go through. And in these cases, it's mothers and fathers burying their sons. Yeah. And that's really tough, because if you think about it, these are your sons are the ones that carry your bloodline. Yes. And you lose those, and there's an immediate disbelief that this is actually happening. And when you're not getting answers, you're just kind of wondering aimlessly, saying, does anybody care? And certainly we care. So big props for Chief Cobb. When I called him, he answered the call. He did come in, and like you said, he sat in the middle of these families, and there was a standing room only. Yeah. in that room that day. And he exposed himself to what could have been, a very, very, when there's no answers, you could get a little frustrated and a little upset about that. But the families handled themselves with dignity.
Yes.
And I was so proud of how they interacted together with the chief, and in terms of getting him to answer questions, and he just gave it to them straight. And I think no one wants more to have these cases solved than the chief. But it's a process, and it's very difficult. And as you know, these things can be quite layered, and it takes more than just wanting to solve it. They have to have a strong case in order to prosecute these cases.
Yes.
And so, with that means we have to have evidence, we have to have witness testimony. So it's difficult, but it's important that we have that open communication. It would mean a lot to me. I can't even imagine losing a son. I just pray every day that I never have to experience that. But we know that there are a number of people that we know in this community. We're a close community. It's not like you can go a year and not see anybody in this community. We run into each other all the time.
Yeah.
And so we're a close community. And so what affects you will affect me.
Yes.
And even though it doesn't directly impact my life, it does affect me. And so it did, I appreciate it with you and I coming together and having the families being able to talk through some of these issues with the chief.
Yeah, and just from the aspect of community or even funeral owners' perspective, a lot of these families needed that dialogue.
They need
I mean, because most of the time after a funeral, that's probably the last time openly that these families be able to sit down and say what's on their hearts and their minds, and you're so numb when this happens.
That's right.
And you kind of, I was talking to a young guy yesterday about his mom. His mom had passed away, and he said that he really appreciated what we did because of the fact that it helped him because of the fact that he can't even hardly remember the steps that even after that day. He can't remember even hardly some of the funeral because he was just numb to that loss.
That's right.
And that's what's kind of happening with families, It's such, and when I look at it almost like a soldier being in combat, post-traumatic stress.
That's right.
And it's a stressful situation, and especially when you lose a sudden loss of a loved one, they're stolen away from you. It's always hard to lose a loved one, but if you know that someone's sick or something like that, then you might be able to kind of prepare for it. Spend a little bit more time with it, maybe do some things that you haven't done in a long time, and I've even seen people where they're doing some some things now with life celebrations while the person is living. And then they get to say goodbye to all their loved ones and kiss on them and hug on them and kind of do their own eulogies and things of that nature. And that's something new coming to the table now. But these people don't have time enough to prepare at all.
They don't.
And so like my friend that was killed right before Christmas, when that's a family moment, that's a family time.
I know how that is.
And
I lost my mom right before Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's something you never forget.
And I lost a brother right before Christmas.
So I heard you talking about your own personal dealings with the loss of a loved one, and it's extremely hard when it happens around a major holiday. And she was born on Christmas, so it really does. It's those moments. And Jill Leovy, who wrote the book Ghetto Side, was talking about this kind of grief. It's like no other grief that she has, because she actually had to interact with a lot of the families shortly after they had a homicide victim. And she then talked about, in the first 48 hours, you got to talk to the victims. You're trying to collect as much information. But the fact that she said it's like no other grief, because 2 years, 5 years, many years down the road, she said the minute you talk up, you mention that person's name, it's just so painful.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better, is what she said.
Yeah.
And that for me is just so hard to grapple with. But I can't imagine that if we find the person responsible for murdering your loved one, that has to bring some sense of relief. Although I don't think that the pain of losing a loved one ever goes away.
Right. And you just learn to go and kind of move through the next day,
Yes.
the next day, the next day until years later. But you just study slowly, moving your life forward. And some people still can't move their lives forward. They actually move backwards.
So what I would say, Sean, is for those people that are watching us today that know somebody that has experienced a loss, that they should embrace that person. Make sure that you're checking on them and helping them through. This is a difficult time. This is a difficult time for these families. And the worst thing, I think, is to be alone in with your grief and with your, just your sadness. I think that we are a community that cares, and I think that I would encourage the families to just be there and the community that know that for those families that are going through. You and I had a meeting to help them get answers.
Yes.
And I think that was good, but I would say to those people that are closest to them that they should stay close.
Oh yeah, and it always helps, even with just with the regular death, to kind of check on those loved ones, even after the funeral, because most of the time, like I said, during the funeral, you have so many people that are coming at you, so many people that, and sometimes people that are closely impacted by the death, they're so numb that they really can't receive the love the way it's being orchestrated and given out. But afterwards,
they will appreciate just you being there.
Yeah,
and there are
afterwards.
stages of grief. There are stages of grief, so you don't know where they are in that stage.
Yes.
But I do think that, just your presence, just being there to see if they need anything, and
it's ironic
a
that
hug. Sometimes it's that human contact.
It's ironic that you said that, because a lot of times people come up to me and they say, well, I want to call them, but I don't know what to say.
That's right.
And I'll say, well, just don't say anything.
Yes, right.
Just go around them and just give them a hug.
That's right.
Just give them a hug and just be there. They'll open up to you when they're ready to say something. And so I sat at a hospital with the lady and her husband, and they just got off the highway, and he was just okay. And one thing that she said to all of us in that room, she said that is no more closer saying to her right at that moment was that every day is precious.
That's right.
That every day is precious.
That's right.
And that you can't take anything for granted.
That's right. You can't.
Yeah, you can't take. And then she said, one day you up, and the next day you can be down. And so as I thought about that even after that service, I mean, every moment's precious, and like these victims, everybody matters to somebody. Everybody matters to somebody, no matter what economic status they're at, where they're at in their lives. They matter to somebody.
That's what we can do better.
So,
and that's what I heard in the meeting, how their loved ones were portrayed in the media.
Yeah.
That's adding insult to injury.
Yes.
You want to drag up a lot of things that have nothing to do maybe even with what happened.
Yeah.
And put their loved one in a bad light.
Yeah.
I think that we have to find ways. I don't know if the media, and that's one of the things that is covered in that book, how the media has an effect.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't help the situation.
Right.
When you got to read, if you're going to your media for information, for answers, that's where you're searching. And then the thing that you find is not the answers, but like a crucifixion of your loved one's name, memory, because they only know what they've heard. They don't know that person personally.
Right.
And like you just said, they have a connect. People love these these individuals.
Yeah.
They might have been a victim or involved in some criminal activity, but they still have people that love them and care for them.
Yeah.
And so when we have these insensitive stories, especially during a time where families are hurting, that they're just they become the victims because now they have to read these horrible stories about their loved ones that are being written in the paper, and some people want to justify that.
Yeah.
And that's horrible for any family to have to go through.
You brought to my memory something else that I've seen in media before, and this was way before I even got involved with any type of politics or any type of community stuff. Is one day I was with one of my friends, and his kids got killed tragically in a fire in Champaign, and they wanted to do a story years later about it, but never called Dad and said, "Hey, we're going to do a story about your family,"
Right.
and never contacted Mom. They just put the story on the front page of their paper.
Oh my goodness.
And so we're reading the paper, and he
horrible.
see his daughters being carried out by a firefighter.
Oh my goodness.
And so I called that newspaper and I said, man, I mean, he was broken to pieces.
Devastated.
Showing me this.
Right.
And as we looked at this paper, and I called that newspaper and I said, man, you guys should have called this dad.
How insensitive.
So we can be insensitive with media and
Right.
and
We
the
heard
tragedy.
that, remember?
And they
we
said
heard the families brought that up. And actually, they said, we're meeting with Chief Cobb today. We want to meet with the newspaper tomorrow.
That's exactly
remember?
what they said
So
for the next meeting.
So that's sad because
meeting.
I think the media has a role to play.
Yeah.
And they have to understand when we are a community that is in trauma, a community that's hurting, a community, not just the families, but a community that has been traumatized for so much violence.
Yes.
We just, last week, there were 7 shootings.
Yes.
And we're just random, where kids were in the house. I mean,
Yes.
this kind of violence it's got to stop, number one, but number two is how, when tragedies happen as a result of that violence, how does that then get played out in the media?
Right.
Because the people that are still living have to grapple with all of that, and it's very painful.
Well, getting to some of the things that you keep referring back to, and in the story of Ghetto Side, which is a true story, and the LA reporter that wrote the story, and she was interviewed on a program called Fresh Air.
Fresh Air.
Fresh Air. And so as I always try to come up with a topic for my different segments of the television program, this one I couldn't quite wrap my mind around it to kind of see what we're going to title this program.
Right.
But what kept coming to my mind was crying from the grave. I mean, just crying from the grave. And
That's
I think these
right.
people are crying from the
They
grave.
are.
They're crying from the grave to get some justice. They're crying to the grave for their loved ones that they left so suddenly.
That's right.
And so I think the families are.
This is a time when we want the justice system to work.
We want it to work. We want it to work.
want it to work.
We want it to work. And I think that even through some of these tragedies, some of the people that were in the neighborhood, or some of the people that might be witnesses, or so, I think they have tried to help as much as they can. But it's always more work to do. And so what we try to do is, even in the meeting, is try to find out what role could these families and community play. And I think one of the things that we found out of that meeting that we had was that more communication, definitely.
Yes.
And I think we found out counseling and constant dialogue back and forth with the families.
Yes.
But through this Ghetto Side story, where this LA reporter met with a lot of homicide victims' families. And she attended funeral services.
She did.
She worked alongside with investigators, detectives that were investigating the stories, and she worked closely with them as they investigated these stories.
That's
She did a lot of research with statistics and things of that nature. And I think you brought some statistics with us today I don't know if you want to share some of those statistics.
I don't mind. They're going to be a little alarming, I have to say, because between 1995 and 2005, she did, she did a national. This is a national statistics on homicides of black victims, and mostly adult men. There were 187,000 homicides during that time. 90,000 of those victims were black.
Wow.
And mostly black males.
Wow.
And then when we think about that, put that in the big picture, when we only make up 13% of the population nationwide, those numbers should just, they're staggering. And then she went on to say that 40 to 50% of those are unsolved.
Yeah. And that's sad.
It's
and that's sad. And I think that even in the story she talked about, it's even less when it's just a gunshot victim. It's even less to be solved.
That's
I think
right.
she said 27% of those are solved.
That's right.
In her study.
Right.
My Reverend West Brick came out when you gave those stories.
Now, wait a minute. I miss Reverend West sitting there at this.
Yeah, my Reverend West
Sitting.
Brick,
Okay.
and great mentor of mine
Yes.
that turned over his
God
radio
bless his
program to
soul.
me.
Yes.
But the Brick came out when you say those alarming statistics and you say black males. Most of these crimes are almost all of these crimes are black on black crimes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
kind of self-inflicted wounds.
Right.
We're doing this to ourselves, and so that's the saddest part.
That is. And we do need to talk about that.
And that should be some further dialogue through community coalition, other
Yes.
larger based meetings that we have. That our lives matter, and we need to see that our people that look like us, and that's our
right.
peers, that their lives matter. The tragedy that goes on, I know through CCAP one year, I was just getting in the funeral home business, and I know how impacted I was by going to Batesville, Indiana, and seeing their manufacturing line of different caskets going off the line. And so they're so busy that they don't have a forklift driver driving a forklift to load a casket up. They have an automatic forklift, and they have a bunch of them rolling. And and as the orders go to corporate office, the forklift is rolling and pulling stuff. And as I've seen custom stuff for firefighters, for police officers, for just community
That's an
members.
assembly line.
It's an assembly line.
Oh my!
And they said that
Sean.
they said that they go through almost 30,000 caskets per day out of this facility. And as I was sinking that information in, and I'm newly into the business, I thought that it would have been important for our young people to be able to take a trip of that magnitude, or at least take a trip to the county coroner's office.
That's right.
To a local funeral home in town.
That's right.
Not just see a funeral home when you lose a loved one, but to go over there and know the importance of life.
What happens to those that are left behind?
See what this young lady has saw
Yes.
after the homicide.
That's right.
Maybe
And the pain that lasts for years.
I'm just coming off a funeral of a young man that was 19 years old, killed tragically from an accident. And he had a lot of friends that loved him, a lot of family that loved him. And to listen to the story of one of the young friends, and he said, "I've never lost a friend. I've never lost anybody in my life.
Yeah.
And this is so hard to deal with.
It's hard. This is
And
tough.
so
This is a tough.
so it's
topic.
tough. It's tough.
is.
And so I think a lot of our young people, it's not a PlayStation game.
No.
It's not something that you can say you're sorry after it happens.
That's right. It's permanent.
And it's permanent damage
permanent.
to different, as you say, layers.
We don't get do-overs.
You don't
when once that's too permanent. And I think a lot of times we caught up in just the moment and what's going on. And you just take someone's life in an instant, it's gone.
And most of the time,
you
it's
can't
over
just-
something simple.
Just
something simple, something that intervention and a dialogue maybe could have settled. I've heard stories of people getting killed for $5, you know, $1, you know, something that's insignificant. And,
Yeah.
and more so, when you
do
talk to
these
the
stuff.
people that maybe committed the crime,
Yes.
they say, what was the principle of it? It really wasn't about the dollar amount. It was just the principle of it.
yeah.
And so we're stuck to some code or some principle or something that we've been inbred
It
and
almost sounds
implanted.
like they think that it's some kind of a level of disrespect.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what it kind of boils down to. But if you think about what we're really dealing with in the big picture, let's look at what disrespect is really, what it really looks like to be disrespected. Not your brother on the street that might have, might owe you $5 and you didn't pay him right then and there, and you're getting mad because it's the principle. He owed me that. I told him I wanted it then today, and he didn't have it today. So, he had to be dealt with. I mean, those are small things in the grand scheme of things. And I wish we can look at the big picture when our brothers are out there so full of anger that they want to so quickly take another brother's life like that. And it could be them the next day, or somebody in their family. I mean, can we put? I don't know how we rectify this situation. It's something that we've been grappling with a long time, Sean.
Yeah.
But I have to say, you got me on this show the first time, and this is heavy. This is a heavy conversation to be having.
Well, me and you always, we talk a lot on the phone.
Yeah.
We never sat in front of the camera, in front of the listening and viewing audience before.
Right.
But I'm almost getting comfortable over here, about to cross my legs, because I really like dialoguing back and forth with you.
Well, yeah, it's like we're sitting at a kitchen table having real conversation.
And I love it. Hope you guys are loving it out there on the program.
Yeah.
This real dialogue, heart to heart. But
Yes.
one of the things that came to my mind is when you said larger scale of things. We got
The grand scheme.
the grand scheme of things. The national or maybe
Right.
the societal things that are poured into these young people or to these old people.
Right.
And so I had a thing that was on my that was sent to me on Facebook, and it was a mortician out of the East Coast.
So let's get to the root.
And he's fed up with things. And seeing he's tired of seeing grieving families.
Right.
He's tired of seeing these young people that are their lives are ripped away from their families. Their body parts are being distributed around the globe.
Oh my goodness.
They're a hot commodity to somebody. And so he explains that in depth, what he means about that. And I'll get you that information. I talked about it on the last television segment. But when you're pouring so much into these young people, the music that we listen to, we have a hot show that's on television right now called Empire. And it even caught my attention just because I want to see what it's all about.
Oh my goodness!
And so
I have to admit, I watched it.
So I'm watching Empire, but it's that what Stacey Henry taught me, the word vicarious living.
Living vicariously through someone else.
Through someone else.
Yes.
And so he explained that to me, and so once
we have a lot of that.
We have a lot
with
of
our
that.
young people.
We have a lot of that.
With our
not
young
really trying to achieve that magnitude or that level of success by putting a certain amount of work in.
No, because we're living in an instant society.
I need it now.
We want everything right now. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be instant. It has to be now.
So when I see Patricia's hard work, and she's been on her job, 30 years at it,
Yes.
and she has a little something that I think that it fits better with me. So now, because I don't want to put the 30 years of hard work in, let's take Patricia's car. Let's take her jewelry. Let's take something that one of her loved ones, maybe a husband, have taken a lot of precious time on and picking some nice jewelry for yourself. Being a young person and looking at that and listening through a rap song that might say "take it," or a rap song that says the other person's life doesn't mean anything, or the vocals are saying that we don't respect each other, or we don't respect our women and things of that nature.
Wow, when you talk about music, I was listening to some old school music, and it just was all about peace and love,
Yeah.
and that's just not what they're selling these days, and we're in a culture of sex and violence.
Yeah.
Is monopolizing and dominating our airwaves.
Yes.
You can't even get away from it. It's like on television. It's in your radio. It's just everywhere.
Well, Patricia.
But I don't want to say that we've got to make what's real to our young people, and I'm always curious as to how can we rewind. Now this is a time that we need to rewind and try to figure out why are we taking those quick, easy routes. I mean, because we know where they usually lead. There's no myths there. I think our young people know. You live fast. I mean, things they come and they go fast. If you get, So I think that we as a community, though, need to figure out how do we rewind that. We need more opportunity for our young people. So if they're looking over here, should I take this road or should I take that road? I mean, this is a quick road, quick money, fast money. This is the life. Or should I take the road where, you start at the bottom, work your way up to the top. It doesn't seem too glamorous. But even that sometimes isn't there. That opportunity.
We probably can go on for a couple hours. You thought we couldn't go on for hours. We can go on for a couple hours.
And I didn't know it was going to be.
One of the things that you said about care, do the larger scale, the powers to be, do you feel as though they really care, or too many people making money off the dysfunctionality of people?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, especially in our community. I know that there are a number of people that are profiting from the ills and the wills of the African American community, which is the sad part.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about privatization of our prison systems, and we can take a look at the traffic stops for an example. Ferguson is a community that their second largest revenue is gotten from traffic stops. So it becomes profitable, for a number of different institutions, a number of different businesses. But people, we can go back to where we started from, Sean, when we talk about our families hurting, and they're grappling with this idea of, all of this violence in our community, and then you couple that with maybe the poverty and the preying on the community in terms of economics. We heard, what was the term that we heard a few years ago? Predatory lending. I mean, it just keeps going on.
Right.
That is real in our community, and so.
So our community just got a target.
Well,
so to speak.
So to speak, but we should not relent to that. We as a community have to recognize that we have obstacles, but not allow those obstacles to stop us from the American dream, so to speak. So that's the thing, that we know that it might be a difficult course to get to that American dream, but it's not an impossible one.
One of the things that, we've hurt people.
They do.
And so when we don't solve these issues,
yeah.
The hurt people, and we get this way because we have built up built up hurts in us.
Yeah.
And most of the time, and almost all the time in this program, I bring a certain spirituality to the program.
Yes.
And so because I'm a spiritual person, big shouts out to Jericho Missionary Baptist Church,
Yeah.
Pastor Johnson. But
And since we're shouting out to the Love Corner, to
Bishop Gwen, yes. But one of the things that I always say, it develops a spirit.
Yes,
It develops a spirit, whether if you're old or you're young.
that's right.
A hurt spirit.
That's right.
And hurt people.
They do.
And so when we build up a community, and we're on the rebound of trying to build this community up
Yes.
from all the many years of ills. And so as we work hard in community
Through
work
the
in our
community coalition and trying to do
and
that.
everybody that's connected, as we try to build these people back up that's been hurt and trampled upon
Right.
in various different ways.
Right.
So and then their siblings are the nuclear fallouts of hurts. And some of these people have not even addressed the adults and the grandparents that were hurt.
Yeah.
So we're raising kids in a household or an environment of nothing but a lot of hurt
And I
and
think we
frustration.
need to do a better job of that too.
And being compassionate to and understanding, because a lot of times I had to deal with one family and talking to the husband and saying, be patient with her. Be patient with them. Because everybody grieves in a not in no
Very
set
different
time span.
That's right.
In very different time spans.
That's right.
So you got to be patient. And a lot of times as community, we'll say, well, get over it. Come on. I mean, it's been 5 years.
That's right.
It's been so much time on it. But
That's right.
even with me losing my best friend back in 2008, and I had a dream about it the other night. I mean, so it's still years later, and as we looked at the story here,
Doesn't get any
the
easier.
families that you find, and I connected with one of the families. Because you start going to the gravesite. Me and his mom were going out there every day. And we were going out there every day visiting the grave. I mean, like it's finna move anywhere, like it's
Yeah.
finna go somewhere.
She told a profound story about a mother just actually spread eagle.
Wow. And when that
over
investigator brought the young man's shoes by the house, and just being able to smell his smell,
Yeah, it was
and that just was just horrific for her.
Right. And all of that comes rushing right back
Oh,
as
yeah.
if it's happened just yesterday.
One of the things that I did, and we did every year, we used to throw him a party for his birthday, because his birthday was right around the time that he died.
Okay.
And then one of the things that we did, and we do every year around the day that he died, we'll meet at the cemetery and let go balloons and flowers and things. Well, this particular year, and I always think it's unhealthy. That's what I'm gonna get to. It's unhealthy.
Okay.
It's to revisit. And I watched the videotape of the funeral service.
Wow.
And reliving that, and I mean, it was so horrific and
Yes.
and painful for me to watch that. I'm in the funeral home business,
It's like
and I watch
opening up
funeral
a wound again,
services all the time, But this close connection, this person that I loved on, this person that I know, that was like a son to me,
Yeah.
So being able to relate, because a lot of people haven't lost a loved one of that magnitude. So that not being able to understand. Children are supposed to bury their parents,
Right.
and not the reverse role.
That's right.
And so, and so even mentally grasping this, it's so hard for people for families to do. And so like I said, we're and moving forward, and the positive part of it is always tell families, however the tragedy or however horrific
Right.
the death was. Because I'm a spiritual person, I believe in God, I
Yes,
believe in
that's
Jesus
right.
Christ, and I believe that however horrific it was, the death is always for the living and never for the deceased.
That's right.
And so we should walk away with something positive, if it wasn't nothing but a recipe
Yeah.
that mom left you.
That's right.
It's
It's the memories.
It's the memories.
that you have
because
to hang on to.
Unfortunately, we're all not going to live to be 80.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, we're dealing with a violent world and a corrupt world. And I remember sitting in one of the meetings that we were in CCAP, and I understood how politics works, and then first people on their careers and jobs, how that worked.
That's
and
right.
you kind of have to move forward and move on. And no train can just stop and just pause there. It got to go from steps to steps to steps, and I understood that. But I thought we were getting so much work done after the Kewan Carrington incident.
Right.
And we were meeting every week. But after that meeting, I kind of felt, one of the meetings, I remember even saying, I said, man, I said, wow, I never did understand this from a community's perspective, but I understand that a lot of us get paid off the misfortunes of whatever is going on within the community. And it's sad to say, but I mean, if you spend more man hours, and they talked about homicide detectives needing more funding for more man hours, and my salaries got to go up, and we got to get more government funding because we have this type of problem going on within the community. You know, organizations are developed. You know, I talked to our ministers, and I told them charge it to my head but not to my heart. But you know, as more and more tragedies happen, more and more hope is needed. So we started flooding our churches. We started, you know, wondering why and how can I heal. And I said, and then I
think we start with ourselves.
I do too.
We have to fix what is ailing
What's the ill? What's the ill?
What's the ill? I mean, there are times when we need to seek professional help, and we got to get above that stigma of mental health as well. But there are times when we actually need to look within ourselves and try to work and fix what's happening in our own
community. We say charity starts at home.
Yeah, so we do need to work and build our own coalition with our community to try to strengthen our community and get them to understand that we don't need these, people looking at our children or as a commodity where they're there for their financial benefit. Right. We need to. It's up to us to change that dynamic, and that it's I'm all about empowering the community to take charge and dominion over your own situation. Sometimes things happen in our life that we have no control over, and that's to be expected. That's called life. But there are things that we can do. I was thinking, what you probably don't know is I'm a big boxing fan. Okay. I've always enjoyed boxing. And even more back in the day when there were some serious fighters and I could get into it, you know, the Ali Frazier and we can go on about that. But my point is that what I like about a fight is if you knock them out, they're out, you know. And we've had a number of fights where we have thought we have knocked these issues out, but they keep coming back. And that's what's so exhausting to me. And that as long as we can keep these same issues alive, that's where the profit is there to be made. And because we fought a lot of these battles, Sean. These are not new issues. The violence, the black-on-black crime, it keeps coming back to haunt us.
You know, as you say something about boxing,
I just want to knock these issues out and let it be done. You know, people have died, and this blood, sweat, and tears over a lot of this stuff. And you think they paid the price. Can we move on?
And I know we're getting ready to get a close to the program, but one of the things that I thought about as you mentioned boxing was that I listened to Steve Harvey. I'm a big fan of Steve Harvey. And I listened to, they had a segment where they were advertising some of the comedians. And you know, and as I think about our streets are flooded with guns and things of that nature, and I think about how we had people in our lives that were an uncle, an aunt, the neighbor down the street.
That's right.
Everybody was allowed to do behavioral control.
Absolutely.
And so I think those are some of the things to getting back our neighborhood, getting back our lives, you know, getting back connected as families. And one of the things that one of the comedians said in laughter.
You can't be afraid as an adult.
You can't be afraid to
put a child in their place.
And so as I listened to the comedian he said, you know, I believe that people need, you know, the prison system. I believe some people need to go to prison.
Well.
But he said, I furthermore believe that some people just need a good old behind whooping.
Well, I didn't say it, but
those the views and opinions of Sean. And, you know, because sometimes,
I just think
as I was telling the guys, and I was telling those guys at the barbershop that earlier, because back in the day when I was at Douglas Center Park, I could watch a guy maybe fist fight over something that we talked about was
right.
principle.
That's right.
And I knew that was something not to do to another man.
That's right.
There was some things you just didn't say to another man.
Right.
It was just respect within the neighborhood, conglomerate respect.
Exactly.
And so I think those are some of the principles that we need to go back to, is not whooping on people, but the fact of respecting each other.
And respecting it, and putting, you know, it's like we have got to respect each other, you know, and have that extended family. We need for parents to understand that we care about the community, we care about your kids, and we should care about each other.
Yeah.
And if you really truly believe that, then if I got to chastise your child, you shouldn't have. You should. Well, whatever you did, Miss Avery chastised you. Obviously, you weren't doing something right.
You needed it.
You know, because she's not going to just do it just for the sake of doing it.
My mama used to say, "So what is you doing? You trying to call her a lie?
Yeah.
You get whooping for
That's
calling
right.
her a lie."
That's right. That's right.
But you know,
Exactly.
I thank you guys for tuning in tonight. You see, I done got comfortable. I'm with my friend Patricia Avery. I love having her on there. I'm gonna bring her back on the program again.
On a lighter note, I hope.
On a lighter note, I thank God for you guys viewing this program, tuning in every Sunday night to another episode of Let the Truth Be Told. It's Black History Month. It's our final day. You know, do a little something this month and make every day a Black History moment and a Black History, a significant Black History moment and an impact to somebody's life, positive, and that we can make a difference as a community. So once again, I tip my hat to you, and thank you for another episode of Let the Truth Be Told.